A Thirsty Thursday edition of The Sweat. That's right. I'm Emerson Lotzi. I'm hosting this show for the next 60 minutes or so. So we're going to dish out bets and DFS plays from around the NHL, the NBA. We got the Premier League and match week 16 now, but we're going to get cooking with some Thursday night football. We got the Falcons. We got the Panthers. Few trends here to keep in mind ahead of tonight. Dude, I hear you moaning and groaning on the desk. Relax. I have not introduced you yet. The under on Thursday night hits more often than not. Carolina hasn't been great under the lights in prime time. And after opening 6-0 against the spread this season, Falcons are now 6-3 ATS. Steve Buchanan is here. He's the one who's been making weird noises on the desk you haven't been able to see. Pierce Dietrich.
You do that all the time.
Joining us virtually. What, making noises?
Just, talking without being introduced first.
No, that's not true. I have no idea what you're talking about. Anywho, let's dive deeper into this matchup here, gentlemen. Last time these two teams met, Steve, we talked about it.
Good game.
Yeah, it was. Like, they played what might be the game of the year in the NFL, like, up to this point. Unfortunately, nobody was watching. Who are you going to captain tonight?
Yeah, I think there's not a lot of options that you can go with here because it's going to be a messy game. Like, I'm not a big believer in weather and adjusting accordingly, but
it's going to be gross.
A very gross game. There's going to be winds picking up as the game goes along. Some heavy rain at some point. There's a big tropical storm down in that area. And
there is.
That's what's
Jesse
kind of
Cofield's flying into it as we speak.
But so you just got to kind of go with Patterson here. He was eased back into the mix last week, playing on only 39% of the snaps. He did outsnap his counterpart there with Tyler Algier by 1, but the Panthers have been one of the worst teams in the league at defending against the run. They're allowing the third highest DraftKings fantasy points average of 29 to opposing running backs. Haven't given up a ton of receptions, but teams don't really need to throw to the running backs when you're playing the Panthers because they can't score. But when they are throwing to their running backs, 71% reception rate on the year. This is a huge spot for Patterson. He's the most expensive guy. He's the most obvious guy, but this is not a game where you really can get creative with how this is really kind of playing out. So I think Patterson, you just got to pay for him up at captain.
Yeah, $2,400 more than the next closest guy, which is Marcus Mariota. Pierce, who do you want to captain in this game tonight?
I'm with Steve. Corey Patterson's really the only option. These offenses, there's not a lot of weapons there, and then the weather is not going to abide. You got a hurricane, tropical storm, whatever rolling in. People are going to look at that first game and say, well, they put up a bunch of points. That was in a dome. The weather is going to be terrible. These offenses are already pretty lackluster. And the Falcons, though, they might not be affected that much. Arthur Smith loves to run the ball. The Falcons' offense pretty much leans on the run. You've got Patterson back. Patterson scored 2 touchdowns last week. Their best drives. He got the touchdowns from running inside the goal line carries. I don't expect a lot of points, so you're going to have to roster the guy that finds the end zone. And if you look up and down this roster, based on what we've seen, the odds are that Patterson's going to be that guy that finds the end zone. So he's pretty much going to be your best bet. And as Steve mentioned, Carolina not good against the run. Algiers, Patterson, Mariota, they're all fine, but Patterson's at the top of the list.
All right, dude. Pierce, value. This is where you shine. This is where you can go down on the board. And I'm looking at Tommy Tremble here, tight end. Tight end for the Panthers, just scored twice in the last 3 weeks, $3,200.
Sure, you can get cute and try to guess who's going to get a random catch or a random touchdown, but we're not expecting a lot of offense, so I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend to have the crystal ball to name the 4th tight end on the roster. The safest play is just play the Atlanta Falcons defense. I know these defenses have not been good, but neither have the offenses, and the weather conditions are looking pretty good for the defenses. And we've also got P.J. Walker out there who, he had a couple good games, but he was absolutely terrible last week. And that was against the Cincinnati Bengals team that had a lot of guys missing from that game. And Walker got yanked midway through that. I mean, they brought out like the clowns and they got the hook out and took him off the stage like he was on the Apollo telling bad jokes. And then they brought in another clown in Baker Mayfield. So I like the chances of getting sacks, getting turnovers, getting pick sixes in the terrible conditions with a terrible offense. The Falcons are the safest value on the board.
Are you a Tommy Tremble guy then tonight?
That is an option you can go to.
Okay.
I don't hate that one, but I think Damiere Byrd at 3,300 is someone you can also consider as well. He is their big play guy for the Falcons. He is the guy that when they need to go deep downfield, that's where they're looking towards to go to Byrd. His average distance of target for the year sits at 28 yards. Like, that paints the perfect picture of what this guy is doing when he's on the field. Now, this is someone who can either score 0 DraftKings fantasy points, which he's done on numerous occasions, or he's in the double-digit range. So if he does make that one big catch, if he does get downfield and he connects with Mariota, then you're absolutely smashing the value of his $3,300 play. Again, this is not an ideal situation. There's going to be some high winds, there's going to be some rain, but this is not something that I think you should shy away from, especially in this zone, because there's really not a lot of value you need in this game because there's not a lot of guys you need to pay up for. But if you are trying to differentiate your lineup a little bit, I think Bird at 3,300 with his big play ability is definitely the way to look at it in this one.
Bukes, what's your best bet for this one tonight? You're looking at that total, as we've mentioned, like the trends of Thursday night games going under. You went ahead to the prop department here. I know a lot of our analysts this week have been very high on taking the under on the passing yards total for both quarterbacks.
I actually like the first half under on the game total, which is at 20.5 points. Like, I just don't see a lot of scoring in this game at all. Now, the rain is supposed to let up more in the second half, so that's why I like this in the first half for the under here. The Panthers have also been one of the slowest starting teams in the league. They're only averaging 7.3 points in the first half. Only the Commanders and the Colts have a lower average in the first half of these games. And of course, we know that the Falcons love to run the ball. They're doing it at the second highest rate in the league right now, over 60%. That only trails the Bears, who are at 64%. So when you factor in the weather, the Falcons wanting to run the ball, and then how poorly this Carolina offense has been, especially in the first half, I think under 20.5 points in the first half, I think that's the play you want to make in this one.
Yeah, one of the slowest paced teams in football, not to mention when they're playing with a 7-point lead or more, they're the 32nd, their last place. They are the slowest playing team in football. Pierce, what do you want tonight for a bet?
Give me the Falcons and lay the points. As a former Carolinian, I can tell you first, Atlanta owns Carolina. Go back to 2015. And they're 11-4 straight up, 10-5 against the spread. Atlanta has won the last 4 games at Carolina. 3 of those games, they were dogs. And I don't even think this is a road game for them. If you go back a couple weeks ago, Carolina played San Francisco. Half the stadium was 49ers fans. Unbelievable. Atlanta just down the road. This is going to be a home game for Atlanta. Yeah, the weather is going to be bad, but Carolina is tanking. The fans don't care. I don't even think they want to be there. I would imagine that the Panthers are going to be playing at just a little less than 100%. Meanwhile, Atlanta's got playoff aspirations. They think that they can, make it, and I think they actually can. I don't understand this line. Maybe I'm a complete square on this.
Yeah.
But Atlanta should absolutely thump Carolina tonight.
Yeah, you know that you definitely have the Bucks rooting for the Panthers tonight because it's the Bucks and the Falcons who are tied atop this disgusting NFC South division, and because
we shouldn't even call it a division. We need another word for that.
Okay, I mean, are you saying we should relegate them to like the SEC or something?
Something like that. Yeah, at this rate.
But we do love torturing ourselves here on the show, so let's continue to talk about the NFC South. Let's look at that Sunday morning game. We have Sunday morning football. It's in Germany. It's between the Bucks and the Seahawks. So Pierce, right now, who would you captain in that game?
Kenneth Walker. Come on, this
yeah,
get more credit. Pete Carroll loves to run the ball. He's going to continue to run the ball. I mean, you look at his first start, they gave the rookie 20 carries. Since then, he's averaging 22 carries, over 100 yards per game. He has been dynamic. He's been explosive. I'll just go on with the other verbs that you need to use. But they've got tons of weapons, and it's not just the rushing attack. They're using him as a receiving back as well. His first 2 games, 11, 13 routes. Last 2 games, he's run over 20 routes in each game. He hasn't got the receptions yet, but eventually he's going to start to get those catches because teams have got to guard these receivers. There's so many weapons. This is turning into a very dynamic offense in Seattle. And Kenneth Walker is one of those running backs that we wish he's like he is in the early stages of the CMC development, a guy that runs 20 times, the guy that runs routes, catches passes out of the backfield. It's a great time to buy low on Ken Walker. I'm expecting a huge game from him.
Yeah, he's going to cost you the second most behind Mike Evans. How much are you going to be spending here at captain for this game?
I like just going to Tyler Lockett here. I think he's in a good position here against he has the softer matchups against this Buccaneers secondary. He's averaging over 7 targets per game, 66 yards per game. But like I mentioned here, he's either going to be seeing Winfield or Davis when it comes to his matchups in coverage, whereas DK Metcalf is going to be getting Jamal Dean, which is a much tougher matchup for him. Obviously, DK Metcalf can maneuver any of these cornerbacks. But that being said, Lockett has a softer matchup. That seems to be the go-to guy for Geno Smith. I know this has really been a 1A and 1B so far when it comes to these two receivers, but I think this is a great spot for Lockett. Be able to get downfield in the softer matchups. I think that's what you got to use for your captain this week.
Yeah, he has scored touchdown in 2 straight games, too. Seahawks mascot, by the way, did you see that? The Seahawks mascot was trolling Russell Wilson on their 10-hour flight to Munich. Yeah, doing like the high knees and like light stretching in the aisle. So before you two skedaddle, though, let's go ahead and let's get a bet for this one in Munich. Steve.
I just like taking the points with Seattle here. I mean, Seattle has been one of the best teams against the spread as underdogs this season, which they are seemingly every week. And then they still continue to cover here. They're 5-2 against the spread as underdogs this season, covering by an average of 6 points. So, is it 2 now? Whatever. Oh, it's a 3.
Yeah,
it's 3. Fine,
dude.
I'll take
3.
Even better. I'll take 3. So the Seahawks just continue to cover as underdogs here. I mean, granted, the Bucs are coming off that great win, if you want to call it that, with that last-second vintage Brady drive that we saw. But we easily could be talking about a Buccaneers team that just lost 4 in a row, whereas the Seattle team is playing much better than this Tampa Bay team is at this point. So give me the points with Seattle. I have no issue taking them as underdogs.
Yeah, Pierce. I mean, taking the points may be the way to go here.
I'll go a step further. Give me Seattle and the money line. Seattle, put some respect on the name. I'm tired of people disrespecting the Seahawks. The last guy that was disrespecting the Seahawks was Reed Fowler. We don't see him around here anymore because I killed him with my hot takes. His body's buried in my backyard. That's going to happen to everybody else. Seattle is the team. Steve's got the Mariners. I've got the Seahawks. We are Seattle's favorite sons. Go Hawks.
Wow. Oh,
great take there by
yeah, for sure. We'll pour one out for Reed T. Fowler here during the commercial break. So, yeah, you two are absolutely free to go. We're going to help all of you watching right now build those NHL lineups right after this quick break. Dietrich. All right, to the ice we go, where a couple beefy blue liners are expected to make their return here very soon. As soon as tonight, possibly, for Boston's Charlie McAvoy, which would mark his season debut. And it's looking like Saturday for Florida's Aaron Ekblad, who missed his 11th straight game on Wednesday night. Watch out, Billy. Billy, dude, your lats are looking hot, bro. All right, DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich is here, NHL.com, Speed Jensen. I am happy you two are here because we need some DFS plays for this 10-game slate. And Pete, we were just talking during the break. There are storylines galore tonight, but I do want to start on defense and who you would like to roster here. Like, would you even consider McAvoy if he ends up being the lineup? Because we saw what Marchand did just a couple weeks ago in his season debut for the Bruins.
I would consider him for sure
Yeah.
if he's in. It remains to be seen, but the rich get richer, right? The Boston Bruins already one of the top 5 teams, maybe even the best team in the league, get back a top 10 fantasy defenseman in all formats. But to answer your question, I'm looking at the New Jersey Devils. This team has become a possession juggernaut this season. And the fact that Dougie Hamilton is pounding out shots like this, Hamilton's healthy. Remember, they signed him to a big contract last offseason, and he was kind of a fantasy underachiever. Now he's back up. He's 3rd among defensemen in shots on goal. He's got 10 points in 13 games, faces the Ottawa Senators, who are underachieving in their own right, and a very leaky defense. So I'll ride the hot hand with the Jersey Devils. He'll bring all that exposure to all the top dogs, Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, all their secondary guys. Dougie Hamilton's a beast, so I'm going back to the well here.
All right, Jeff. Looks like in the blue line, Carlson is going to top the salary board here at $8,300, dude.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that we're talking about Erik Karlsson at $8,300. Like what? 12 games into the year, all of a sudden, it's just I don't even know what's going on.
He's got 10 goals and 9 apples in 12 games.
I mean,
played.
it's great to see. I mean, obviously, I don't know, maybe just didn't like Brent Burns or something. I don't know, but I mean, look, as P alluded to, like I mean, Dougie Hamilton, I think is a great target as well. I definitely had him circled, but there's opportunity here tonight. I mean, we can go in a lot of different ways, and I actually think that if you want to get contrarian, you go with Roman Josi at 7,500. Again, like he's going up against Colorado. Not many people are going to be looking to Josie. He's only got 6 points on the year, but this is still a defenseman who just racks up shots on goals and block shots. I mean, that's the one thing that he has over Dougie Hamilton. He does average 2.2 or just 2.2 block shots per game. So, again, like Nashville versus Colorado, obviously they're a big underdog, but they've actually had Colorado's number. The Avalanche aren't as good defensively this year, especially in net. So I think Roman Josi is actually a pretty good contrarian, target. Stacking the Devils, definitely a good way to go. But if you're making, you want to make a little bit of a lower owned lineup, Josi is a player I would definitely work into lineups today. I think that, just the upside and just the fact that you're going to get him probably at sub 5% ownership, I think in a lot of contests, it makes him a good target.
And now we have Connor Ryan of the Boston Sports Journal reporting that McAvoy is in tonight, Pete, that he will be making his season debut.
You love to see it. Yeah, Charlie Mack had his best season last year and brings all that exposure. He'll be out there on the first power play you would expect. I mean, I guess it's a bittersweet for Hampus Lindholm with the power play exposure he's gotten in his breakout season. But, hey, I mean, they play together at even strength. So that's one storyline fantasy-wise that I think Jeff would agree with. Like if a guy like Brandon Montour, who's been red hot in fantasy, or Hampus Lindholm, and they're paired with the guy that's coming back, maybe that can lessen the blow and actually give them some staying power.
Yeah, for sure, dudes. Let's head up to the dot, though, right now. Lots of high-priced options here at center. Who's your guy going to be, Jeff?
I'm actually going to go down in price here. We talked a lot about the high-priced defensemen. I do think you should get exposure to them. But Matthew Barzal's $5K flat, 14 assists, no goals in 15 games, but he's averaging 2.7 shots per goal. And, I mean, look, he's playing the Coyotes tonight, who, I mean, second most shots on goal against. His team doesn't create offense on their end. Yeah, I mean, they've had a couple hot games from, Vejmelka lately, but I think Barzal's in a great chance to break out here. I wrote him up as a goal prop as well tonight in the DraftKings Sportsbook. But at 5K flat for fantasy purposes, I mean, again, you can do so much when you stack Barzal with one of his line mates here. It saves you a ton of salary. And again, this is just a player who, it's not like he hasn't played well. I mean, the Islanders aren't limiting his shifts. He's still playing, in their top scoring lines. It's just the goals just haven't come. He's a player who's had 15 goals in each of his last 5 seasons. He's got a 10% career shooting rate. He'll get them. And I would almost be shocked if he didn't break through tonight. It's been so long. So 5K, again, you get the good matchup against Arizona, allow a ton of high danger chances as well. Yeah, give me Matthew Barzal here. I think it's a great value.
All right, Pete. Jack Eichel, $7,100 here, returning to Buffalo for the second time since his trade last year. What do you think? This time also he's fully healthy and on a 6-game point streak. So that's 3 goals there.
He looks like the good Jack Eichel of old that put up 80-plus points that one season in Buffalo. And I think that there's certainly a revenge narrative here where he's going to have some extra motivation after what went down last year. The Sabres were crazed. The fans were on his back. You know, they scored. Alex Tuck scored the empty net goal last year. It was like, you know, a dagger in Jack Eichel. But I think he's going to come up big here. 15 points in 14 games. Good shot volume. I love the matchup from a narrative standpoint. Eichel versus Tage Thompson, 2 of the best shots on goal output guys in the league. And just keep an eye, though, on the Buffalo Sabres. They've allowed 14 goals during their 3-game losing streak. So maybe the glimmer is off that team after their hot start. And reality check time, they did lose a darn good player when they traded Jack Eichel. I think he's about to show them what they lost.
Yeah, 6-game point streak, 3 goals, 8 points total there. As we go to the wings and things department, Pete, who do you like here? Couple members of that perfection line for Boston sit atop the salary board.
I like a lot of the value at the wing position. One guy I'm looking at that's really underrated is Trevor Moore for the LA Kings. The LA Kings have been up and down offensively, but this guy leads the Kings in shots on goal this season with 49 in 15 games. He plays on that second line with Philip Deneau that I think on a daily basis for DFS is something worth tapping into. One of the most underrated lines in the league. Nobody talks about them. And he's had at least a shot on goal every game this season, Trevor Moore, and at least 3 shots in each of his past 4 games. The Chicago Blackhawks are allowing the 6th most shots on goal per game. So wouldn't be surprised at all if you get some good bang for your buck from Trevor Moore.
All right, Jeff, who can get a good bang for your buck for in the wing area?
I mean, I like going to Andrei Svechnikov tonight. I mean, obviously Carolina played last night. They're the only team on the back-to-back. But, I mean, they got embarrassed by Florida, shut out. Svechnikov has been, slower of late, but, his price is still $7K. I think that's fine, though. It'll just drive people off him a little bit. He's playing the Oilers, who, again, just in terms of matchups, it's hard to do a lot better than this. I mean, they're 5th in shots allowed. The penalty kill hasn't been great for them. They're allowing just a lot of quality scoring chances. The goaltending's been up and down. Edmonton is just a team that's prone to get into shootouts here. So Svechnikov is just a really high upside play. I'd be kind of shocked if that wasn't some kind of 5-3, 6-4 game between Carolina and Edmonton tonight. So I think Carolina's offense gets going, and I think that paying up for Svechnikov with, what is probably a low sentiment spot, just because of he hasn't scored in 4 games, and the Hurricanes got shut out in their last outing. So player I really like and a player I fully expect to bounce back tonight in a great spot.
Jeff, who's your favorite value play tonight?
You got to look at the St. Louis Blues tonight. I don't know what's going on with these salaries. Like Jordan Kyrou, to me, at 4,600, kind of a must play here, averaging 3.4 shots on goal, going up against the Sharks, who've allowed 13 goals in their last 3 games. I mean, they're just not that great a team, and they just keep losing in overtime as well. So you can also look at Ryan O'Reilly at 3,500, but Kyrou to me is the player who you should really be targeting. I mean, still in the top 6 for St. Louis. I know that the Blues have just been a huge struggle bus, but I mean, they're taking on a team who is struggling just as much as them. I mean, the Sharks had a couple of nice wins there, but this is not a good team. As I said, they've been losing a million games in overtime. It doesn't even matter who wins because we're talking about fantasy purposes here. And Kyrou is just a player who's getting a lot of opportunity up against a bad defensive team. I mentioned the shots on goal. He's got a nice floor there, 4,600. I mean, the Blues forwards are just too cheap here.
Pete, I know you just spit off some value play there at the wing, but who else do you like? Who would you say is your top value play tonight?
My top value play, I want to shed some light on this hidden gem out there in the desert for the Arizona Coyotes, Matias Maccelli. If you haven't heard the name, get to know it. He plays for the Coyotes in a secondary role, tied for the NHL rookie lead in points with 9 in 12 games, and also has 6 power play points. If you haven't heard, the Coyotes have a really good power play. I know they're going up against the Islanders, who have a good penalty kill, but the Islanders are one of those teams that kind of sleepwalk sometimes, And I think, they don't have Barry Trotz there anymore for that type of discipline. So wouldn't be surprised if the Arizona Coyotes snuck up on the Islanders and at least made it a competitive game. And between Michelli, Nick Ritchie, some of these other guys, Lawson Krause, I really like. I just think there's some against the grain appeal on those Coyotes and what they're doing out there when no one's watching.
Hey, before you two go, who would you say has been the biggest fantasy surprise for you this season, like so far? A couple notes producer Drew made, like McDavid, Draisaitl leading the way in scoring. But as we've already mentioned in the show, Erik Karlsson has already matched his goal total from last year. Bo Horvat's almost at a goal per game. Jeff.
Yeah, no, Carlson is probably the biggest surprise. I don't think many people saw that coming for sure. I'm gonna go to the net. There's actually been a lot of really just surprising play from the goalies. I think Carter Hart is the biggest for me at 8,200. Nobody really had Philly pegged for to be just like a decent team even. Obviously, I think most had them in their bottom five, but you can give credit to John Tortorella, I guess, and leaning on the top six, but it's really just been Carter Hart. 0.946 save percentage, goals against under 2. He's 6-0-2 in 8 games. This dude has just completely turned it around. We've saw glimpses from it in the past, but for him to come out and just put in that kind of performance, he is carrying this team. There's been other goalies. Jake Ottinger has been out of his mind. Linus Ullmark for the Bruins is I think still undefeated at home. Logan Thompson, but Carter Hart to me is the biggest one because this isn't a player playing in front of a good team. He has absolutely carried the Flyers to respectability. So that's been the biggest shock for me.
What about for you, Pete?
I'm looking at a couple of forwards. There are a bunch to name. I'll give shout outs to Gabriel Velarde, Dominic Kubalik, overcoming expectations, low draft position and roster percentage and stuff like that. But two guys on the cusp of the top 10 in the entire league in points, Jesper Bratt, New Jersey Devils, and Martin Necas. People were drafting Jesper Bratt because he had a breakout season last year, so maybe he's a little less surprising. Martin Necas, to me, around top 10 in the NHL in even strength points, leads the Carolina Hurricanes. This is a Hurricanes team with Svechnikov, Sebastian Aho, Brent Burns. I never would have expected that, as we approach the quarter mark of the season, that Martin Necas would be leading the team that I picked to win the Stanley Cup in the Carolina Hurricanes in points. So major shout out to Necas. He had a great season 2 years ago, kind of fell off the map a little bit last year, but this is bounce back city for a very young player who's very talented and could maybe put them over the top this postseason.
Hell yeah, brother. All right, Pete, Jeff, later, dudes. We got literally everything that you guys and gals need to know coming up with the NBA. We got a sports betting segment. We got a DFS segment. But first, a little more on Thursday Night Football because I know that's exactly what you want. Let's get a quick reminder on Steve's steals for tonight's showdown. What's up, everybody? Welcome to... Hell yeah, brother. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Steals of the Week presented by Larceny Bourbon. Larceny Bourbon.
Good stuff.
Discover a taste
look
worth
at you and Steve.
stealing.
Having
Emerson
fun
Lancia here. Steve. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Steals of the Week presented by Larceny Bourbon. Larceny Bourbon. Discover a taste worth stealing. Emerson Lancia here. Steve Buchanan over there. We are here to find some steals or value plays for people playing in Thursday night showdown contests between the Falcons and the Panthers this week.
All right.
Two teams coming off losses. However, the Falcons still find themselves atop a very weak NFC South.
Impressive.
Yeah, it kind of is at 4 and 5. Yeah. Who you looking at for value on the Atlanta side of things?
Yeah, if you look at Damiere Byrd, he played the third most snaps amongst the Falcons receivers last week. He's been really their boom or bust guy all throughout the season. His average distance of target sits at 28 yards. And the Panthers secondary has been pretty generous to opposing receivers, allowing an average of 36 DraftKings fantasy points, allowing guys to go downfield. So if you're looking for that boom or bust play, Byrd is probably your guy from the Falcons.
All right, how about a value play or a steal from the Carolina side of things?
Yeah, I like Terrence Marshall in this spot. He has back-to-back games now with double-digit fantasy points on the year. He's played 6 games. He's averaging 15.5 yards per reception, and really kind of coming into this offense as of late. Obviously, DJ Moore has been the guy, but Marshall is really trying to solidify himself in the wide receiver 2 role. And then we can't forget, Falcons secondary is absolutely decimated with injuries between A.J. Terrell, Casey Hayward. They've been very, very tough to go against lately, so I like this spot for Marshall a lot.
All right, dude. Appreciate you, Steve. Thanks so much. And thanks to all of you for watching Steals of the Week presented by Larceny Bourbon. All right, so the NBA schedule lightens up a little bit on Thursday. Only 4 games. Some of these teams on the second half of a back-to-back set, including the Mavs, Pelicans, and Trailblazers. Not a shocker to see Luka there atop the salary board. 12.5 is what he's going to cost you. So they're going to try to bounce back from a disappointing loss to the Magic when they face the Wizards, but they're going to have to do so without Christian Wood. So right now, let me welcome in Jeff Pratt, Nick Fryer, a couple DraftKings contributors, couple incredible friends of mine. We're going to talk some best DFS plays for each game tonight here, guys. So we're looking at the classic salaries, classic slate, those salaries there. Best DFS play for Dallas and Washington. What do you think here, Fryer? And is Luka worth the price tag?
Yeah, of course, that's the first guy that we're looking at too. And I kind of took more of looking at a stud angle for this game. And as much as I would like to go with Luka and understand anybody that does go with Luka in this one, he's not the stud I want to roster in this game. I'd actually rather go with his old teammate who's getting a revenge spot here, Kristaps Porzingis at 8.5K. Part of that is this game has a low total, so I don't know necessarily what Luka's going to do here. And also his price tag, I know he's scoring well. Like, he's getting you DK fantasy points, of course, but he's not living up to that price tag of late, not that same boom that we've been getting. And Porzingis' best games have come against teams with size. You look at the 2 games against the 76ers, his performance against the Cavs. I know Christian Wood's not in this game, but there still is size on Dallas' side of it. They're on the second leg of a back-to-back too, and then you take Christian Wood out. I like Porzingis a lot more at 8.5K.
All right, what do you think here, Pratt? Because Luka averaging 1.74 DraftKings points per minute, which is by far the best production rate on this 4-game slate.
Yeah, I'm going to look down the board here a little bit. And to be completely honest, there aren't a lot of great fantasy options in this matchup besides the obvious studs. These two teams are holding their opponents under 112 points per game. So we're likely looking at a low-scoring affair. That being said, you guys have mentioned it a couple of times. There is a key area to attack here, and that is with Christian Wood being out. So I'm looking at a couple of players who will see extended minutes in his absence. The first off is Maxi Kleber, who is the direct beneficiary of Wood's injury. You're not going to get anything flashy with Kleber, but he's played 29 plus minutes in back-to-back games. He can shoot the 3. At 3,400, there's opportunity for a great return on investment there. And then the other guy I like with Wood out is Dorian Finney-Smith, who I think is slightly underpriced here. He's played relatively well over the Mavericks' last 3 games. He's just a consistent producer. You can't ask for much from these sub 5K players, just that they get on the floor and produce when given the opportunity. I think both of these guys will produce.
All right, Pratt, what about Philly and Atlanta? Who was the play in this one? I will say Tobias Harris, since James Harden went down, his game and his point production has really increased.
Tobias Harris is a good call.
Yeah.
I'm going to be paying all the way up here for Joel Embiid, who came back fresh after missing a bunch of games with the flu. He dropped 33, 10 and 5 against the Suns. I expect him to stay hot as he draws a much easier matchup tonight against the Hawks, who rank just 21st in points allowed to centers. With Harden out for at least a couple of weeks, Embiid's going to handle the bulk of Philly's offensive workload. He saw a usage rate of 37% last game. That could easily climb above 40% tonight. He's the second most expensive option on Thursday's slate, but I think the guaranteed production is worth paying up for. The Hawks are also just abysmal defensively against big men. So this is a good spot for him tonight.
Yeah, Fryer, Pratt's on to something. Like, who the hell in the middle is going to stop Embiid for the Hawks?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think this is a great call. I do want to try and find a little more value though in this spot as well. Now I'm looking more in the mid-range for this game. I think two of the best options you can get are actually bigs on the other side of it. As much as they're not going to stop Joel Embiid, John Collins and Clint Capella are two guys that can provide you some value in this spot. Collins at 6.3K, and then Capella is 5.9. And Capella is probably going to be the more popular play because we've seen some big performances from him recently, not just relative to his salary, just in general. He's put up some big fantasy production, but I like Collins a little bit more here because we've seen the Sixers give up a lot of points to opposing power forwards throughout the course of the season. He's going to be less popular, and he can still have a big night in this spot, just like Capella could, and where Capella's going to have his hands full a little bit more so with Joel Embiid, Collins is going to be freed up more. I know he's probably going to have to deal with Tobias Harris to some extent, but still, I think he's going to be able to provide that value at 6.3.
Yeah, Fryer, what about like Jimmy Butler and the Heat? They're in a great matchup as well as they host the Hornets. Who do you like there?
Well, I like the Hornets side of this when we're looking from a DFS perspective. Terry Rozier, 8.6K. To me, this is a no-brainer in here. When you look at the three-pointers made allowed to teams this season, to opposing point guards, there's only one team that's given up 4 or more on a per-game average, and that's the Miami Heat. So for Terry Rozier, I mean, this is perfect. And with Charlotte on the second leg of a back-to-back too, I expect this to be a fast-paced game. Rozier hasn't taken fewer than, 9 3-pointers in his last 3 games. So, yeah, he's going to be chucking them up tonight. So definitely going to be returning that value and providing you a lot with at 8.6K.
All right, Pratt, what do you think here? I see Bam Adebayo. I know his numbers are down this season, but he's still been productive, and he's $3,000 less than Joel Embiid.
I'm going to be looking on the Hornets side as well. And let's just be honest here. No one is tuning into Charlotte Hornets basketball to watch a good team play this year. That's not who they are right now. This team is a mess. But they do have a couple of individual good DFS options, especially tonight. And Nick Richards is one of those guys on the value side of this game. He's quietly been very productive as of late. We're talking 19 plus points in 3 of his last 4 games. He's carved out a significant role for himself off the bench. It's also worth noting that the Heat are a tough matchup defensively for centers, but a lot of that is thanks to Bam Adebayo. And luckily for Nick Richards, the majority of his minutes should come against backups like Dwayne Dedmon, who just isn't nearly as tough defensively. You're getting a double-double threat for 4K with Richards, so that's great value, in my opinion.
All right, dudes, 4th and final game. We'll talk DFS here for Portland and New Orleans. Who was the best DFS play in this one, Pratt?
Yeah, none of these stars in this matchup have been performing at a truly elite, consistent level lately. So instead of paying up for Damian Lillard, Zion, or Brandon Ingram, I'm going to roll with Jonas Valanciunas at 7K. And Jonas has racked up 40-plus fantasy points in 2 of his last 3 games. The usage rate has been there. It surpassed 23% in both of those contests as well. Portland is subpar defensively against bigs. They rank 23rd in points allowed to centers, so this is a strong matchup for him. It's also worth noting that Jonas Valanciunas has played his best this season on the second night of back-to-back, so this is a great spot for him to stay hot.
All right, who do you want here, Fryer?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing they go with Valanciunas, too, is that Yusuf Nurkic isn't in this game tonight because he is questionable. And if he does not play, I think Drew Eubanks is a no-brainer roster tonight. What was it, 31 DK fantasy points in their last game with no Nurkic at 4.3K. I think you don't have to overthink this one. And there's quite a bit of value to be had in this game, too, because like Jeff said, when you look at the stars that are in this contest, there's really just not a whole lot there. I think if Jeremy Grant is out, because he is also questionable, Keon Johnson is worth looking at 3.9K, but Keon Johnson is also questionable. So if he doesn't play, Nasir Little is at that same price tag, another guy worth looking over. And Herb Jones, too, on the other side of this matchup at 4.8K. Not a guy you have to worry about with Portland side of it. You have to worry about a bunch of injuries and everything like that, and keeping track of the reports and whatnot. Herb Jones, you can just put him in 4.8K. He's been scoring quite a bit more lately. He gets all the ancillary stats as well, so he's someone who at 4.8K can get you some value too.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Fryer, you look good today, man. Clean up well, buddy. All right.
I mean,
No, you look great too. You look great too.
No, that was a
I don't know.
passive aggressive.
I don't know.
Jeff.
I
Yeah,
don't
All
know.
right, I'm told I got to wrap. Sorry, guys. We got to take a
Sure.
quick break,
Yeah.
and then we're going to look at the sports book side of these 4 NBA games right after this.
Sure.
Stop. All right, so we just did the DFS side of this 4-game NBA slate today. Right now, we're going to attack it from a sportsbook angle, and we got RotoWire's Nick Whalen here, DraftKings contributor Gary and Thorne. They're going to help us out with their favorite bets for each game. Starting with Mavs at the Wizards. What you want here, Gare Bear?
I'm just going to take the under. These are two slow teams. The Mavericks in particular are the slowest team by far in the NBA, running just over 94 possessions per 48 minutes. Wizards fourth slowest pace in the NBA. So already that's a pretty good jumping off point. As I can see now, this line is already moving down. It was 209 half an hour ago. But when I was looking at this game, it is now 208 and a half. Still would bet the under. This is a game that features no Christian Wood on Dallas's side, which obviously impacts any minutes Luka Doncic is not playing for the Mavericks. They just don't really have a go-to scorer now when he's on the bench. And then Bradley Beal is going to miss his third consecutive game. And the Wizards score 9 points per 100 possessions less when Bradley Beal is off the court so far this season. I think just when you put everything together, when you look at last night's game the Mavericks played without Christian Wood, where they only scored 87 points, that's probably an aberration. But I think it is a sign of things to come. These are just not two teams that are not interested in being fast or scoring all that many points. So I will take the under.
All right, Nick. Dallas was on a 4-game win streak before that disappointing loss yesterday. So what do you want here?
Yeah, it's kind of a tough spot for the Mavs.
Yeah.
On a back-to-back, they played in Orlando last night. Washington has not played since Monday, so a fairly significant rest advantage here for the Wizards. Dallas just 3-6-1 ATS on the year. They're a one-man team, which works pretty well when that one man is Luka Doncic. But, as we saw last night, like when he's off, which is not very often, but when it happens, things can crumble pretty quickly. And, no Brad Beal for the Wizards. It's tough for me to say with confidence that I like the Washington side here. I'm with Gary and on the total. I think that's the smarter play right now, especially if it holds at that 208.5. I don't think either of these teams are going to be able to score all that much. For Washington, it's just not having talent. For Dallas, like Arian said, they're just such a slow-paced team, and it totally passes the eye test. Like when you watch Dallas, it just seems like it's Luka Doncic kind of trotting around the court for 48 minutes, and that's exactly what the offense is, and it works for them. But again, nights when Luka doesn't have it, it could get pretty ugly. So I like the under, and as of right now, I think I might take Washington to cover that 3.5 at home.
All right, how are we feeling about the 76ers at the Hawks here, Gary? And this is a tight one, just Hawks slightly favored at home. I know they're on a back-to-back, but they are playing at home for the second straight day.
Yeah, I mean, Nick just mentioned rest advantage. This feels like a pretty big rest advantage spot for the 76ers. They've only played once in the last 5 days, where this is Atlanta's third game in 4 nights. Now, granted, as you pointed out, Emerson, all of those games have been at home. They haven't had to travel, so maybe that's not as big a concern as sometimes it would be. But with a spread this light, with Joel Embiid as well rested as he's probably been in the last couple of weeks, I think this is a pretty good spot to take Philadelphia, whether you want to do it with the +1 or just take them on the money line. I think they're -105 on the money line right now. Atlanta is only 3-7 ATS the last 10 times they've had to play the second game of a back-to-back. So they've been pretty bad in this spot historically. And like I said, I just think pretty big rest advantage between two teams that I think are relatively evenly matched. I'll just take the rest advantage.
Yeah, Nick, Hawks, interesting stat here, 12-3 ATS in their last 15 games against a team with a winning record. That dates back to last season.
Yeah, they've been good. They've been much better, I think, earlier in the season than I thought they would be. I thought the Trae Young, DeJounte Murray pairing could be a little clunky. I thought that it looked great on paper, but I needed to see it in execution, and it's worked really well. I mean, DeJounte Murray, like fantasy-wise, obviously that's what we worry about most at RotoWire. Like, he's been a monster. I mean, the defensive numbers have carried over. He's one of the best rebounding guards in the league, and it kind of looks like that partnership is going to work. Yeah, I'm with Gary, and I think the money line's the better value right now. I mean, it's about the same as taking Philly +1, but major rest advantage. I don't think, losing James Harden, there's some addition by subtraction, potential here for the next month or so. That obviously they look good against Phoenix the other night in their last game. And if you want to peruse the player prop market a little bit over at DraftKings, I like Clint Capella under 9.5 points. He's been fantastic as a rebounder. The defensive numbers are good, but hasn't been scoring the ball at all. I don't think that changes against Joel Embiid. And Tobias Harris, old reliable. I think he benefits most, maybe other than Tyrese Maxey, from no James Harden. All of a sudden, he's the second, third option again. His prop sitting all the way down at 15.5. I think he can clear that pretty easily.
Nick, what's the bet here between the Heat, which is one of the few teams that actually didn't play on Wednesday, hosting the Hornets here? The spread on this one is 11 points. I know the Hornets here are getting healthy slowly, but Gordon Hayward, LaMelo Ball still recovering from their injuries here.
Yeah, this one I believe has ticked up just within the last 5 minutes here. It was at 10.5, now sitting at Heat -11. Like you said, big rest advantage. I mean, the Heat have been difficult to trust this year. I obviously I like them straight up in this game, but this is a pretty big number. But like you said, rest advantage. Charlotte playing the dreaded home road back-to-back. Obviously a short trip from them coming down from Charlotte, but nonetheless, I think I'd like Charlotte to cover this, though. I don't trust Miami. The Heat right now are an NBA worst 2-9 against the spread. So even some of these games that they're winning, they're not doing it in convincing fashion. And you can also get plus money, by the way, on Bam Adebayo over 18.5 points. That's +100 over at the DK Sportsbook. He's averaging 20.3 points over his last 5.
All right, so Gary, and you added like the injuries that Charlotte has. And I'm looking at numbers. The Heat, 27th in points per game, 27th in fast break points per game. So they don't run and they don't score a lot. This is almost like begging for you to take the under.
I do like the under here. I mean, I kind of had the same inclination as both you guys on different bets. I think is immediately opening up the sportsbook this morning and seeing the Heat as double-digit favorites. At this point of the season, I just don't trust the Heat that much. I think I just would blindly bet any team who's getting more than 10 points against the Heat right now, even if it is a team as flawed as Charlotte in a situation where they are at a rest disadvantage. But yes, I think my favorite bet would just be the under. Charlotte is actually 6-1-1 to the under in their last 8 games. Miami has not been particularly strong to the over this season either. These are two teams in the lower half of the league in terms of pace. But just in general, Charlotte has the 3rd lowest offensive rating in basketball. They just can't really carry their weight in a game where the total is 214. Like, maybe the Heat score 110 points, but even in a scenario like that, I just don't think Charlotte does enough to get this game over the number.
All right, last one here, dudes. A couple other teams that have had injuries derail their early season momentum. We got the Trailblazers and the Pelicans. Gare Bear, what's the bet here?
So this line is also moving. It was Portland +6.5. It is now just +6. I would still probably just take Portland here. Big spread. I was surprised how big this spread was. I'll be honest. Portland, in terms of net rating and like Pythagorean record, yeah, they've probably been outperforming expectations so far this season, but they're the anti-Heat when it comes to ATS record. They are 9-2 so far this season. They're scoring 117 points per 100 possessions when Damian Lillard is on the court because he looks like Damian Lillard, which is fantastic news and really, really fun for the NBA. And this might be like a total guess on my part, but yesterday we saw Yusuf Nurkic and Jeremy Grant go from probable to questionable to out. I think that was kind of like looking at the schedule and saying, hey, maybe we can buy these guys a day of rest heading into a back-to-back. I think you see both those guys playing tonight. And if that's the case, this line is going to move when that is announced. So I would just bet Portland right now.
All right, Nick, have at it quickly.
Same here. I'm surprised that the number isn't baking that in. I'm with Gary, and those were both surprising absences last night. I think they were looking at the schedule. I think they thought they could beat Charlotte without those guys, and they beat them by 10. So it worked. I would not be surprised if we see both Nurkic and Grant back in action. And also, right now, Damian Lillard, 25.5 is the points prop. I like the over there.
All right, dudes. Good stuff. Premier League picks for the latest match week coming up next. So the Premier League is now into its 16th game week, and we're going to get some predictions right now from AJ Scholes of RotoWire, DK Nation's Chinmay Vaidya. It's going to be the final week before the league breaks for the World Cup, gentlemen. So let's go ahead. Let's get some of the mismatches out of the way here. So Man City, look at this on the money line, minus 700 against Brentford. Liverpool, minus 400 against Southampton. What's a bet you like in either of those games, AJ?
Well, I think this is the week Man City can finally get back to where they were. They've struggled to really put up a lot of goals lately, but I think we're looking at a chance for them to do that here. So I'm going to go all the way to City, minus 2.5 goals to get the plus 110 value here. I'm looking for a blowout performance from them as they head off to their World Cup squads. And I don't know if he's going to start yet, but if Erling Haaland does start, this is his last match for a month. His country did not make the World Cup. So why not go all out, get a couple of goals here? And then for Liverpool, look, if you look at the game parlays on the DK Sportsbook, that's where you can get some value. I'd target Liverpool win in under 3.5 total goals here for plus 120. I think they win, but without a heavy load of goals here.
All right, Chimay, Man City hasn't won by more than 2 goals in over a month since they beat Southampton 4-0. So is this the week to hit a Man City spread?
Yeah, I mean, there's actual value going the opposite way if you think that Man City and Liverpool are going to continue to struggle heading into this World Cup break. Brentford at plus 1.5 goals is plus money, and Southampton at plus 1.5 goals is also plus money. If you parlay City and Liverpool at minus 1.5 goals each, that's plus 133 right now. So that could be one way to go. I'm looking at the goal scorers, though. You know, the 2 star strikers are not going to be playing in the World Cup. So if you go Haaland and Mo Salah, anytime goal scorer parlay, that's plus 140. So maybe not a ton of value individually for those guys, but taking them together, you can get plus money on. And then as AJ referenced, Haaland to score 2 or more goals is plus 150. So even though these numbers are pretty outrageous on the money line, in terms of not finding value, there's some other spots here where you can get plus money plays for both of these clubs.
Okay, so the rest of the slate looks relatively evenly matched here. What's a money line side you like for this week, Chin May? Like, hey, minus 185, a little too much to pay for your Arsenal squad?
Anytime you get over minus 150, I think you really start questioning whether it's worth it or not. I think Arsenal at this point, you can pretty much back them to win these sort of gimme games against lower table teams. In years past, maybe Arsenal would slip up in these games, but I think this team is playing a lot better against some of these lower clubs. I would go Arsenal win and over 2.5 total goals. That's sitting at plus 135. If you really don't like the parlays there, you can go minus 185. I still think it's not terrible, but again, minus 150 is kind of the threshold where you really have to think about whether there's any value there.
I mean, AJ, it does seem like one of the simpler fixtures to predict here. Like Arsenal should continue that fine form.
I totally agree, but Chinmay just came full jinx mode onto this one, talking about like, oh, they're going to walk away with these easy squads. Like, maybe you consider taking Wolves plus 550 on the money line in this one after Chinmay coming hard with the jinx. But in terms of money line backs for me, I actually like Fulham at home against Manchester United. They come in at plus 285. They've been really good at Craven Cottage this year with 3 wins, 3 draws, and just a 1 loss. It's obviously a decent amount of risk there. So if you want to minimize that, you could consider draw no bet for Fulham at plus 190 or the Fulham double chance at minus 110. But I think you take the shot at the big value. Take Fulham plus 285 here.
Gentlemen, we're tight on time, so we're going right to it. You know what time it is. Das Sweaty Boot time. Best bet of the week. What's it going to be, AJ?
Well, I was going to look at some Newcastle goal scorer props here, but I think I was trying to get a little too creative. Make it simple when you're struggling. I'm going to just take Newcastle on the money line plus 135. Chelsea, a bit of a tougher opponent, but Newcastle will be at home where they've yet to suffer a defeat this season. I expect they keep rolling here.
Woo, Chinmay, hook it up.
I'm going to go to a different matchup here. Leicester and West Ham. I think Leicester actually have been pretty good on the defensive end over the last few games. They've recorded some clean sheets. They're scoring goals as well. This team maybe, they're not going to get anywhere near Champions League or Europa League, but they can at least get out of the cellar against a West Ham team that has been on and off this season.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Leicester, West Ham, both teams to score no is listed at plus 110. And I think one team gets blanked in this one, most likely West Ham. That's my sweaty boot pick of this week.
All right, two sides massively underperforming this season. Gentlemen, your time here is done. We are tight on time. We got to go. I'll see everyone back here tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock Eastern time for a Friday edition of Das Sweat.